The Mannin Line, daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio from midday till 1, Monday to Friday.
Good afternoon, welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Here we are, race week. It's half-term week as well. And the gorgeous weather continues. Great news, apart from the fact you've been trying to grow stuff in it, which we'll come to later. So anything on your mind, text, email, call on WhatsApp, 166 177 on the WhatsApp and text. studio@manxradio.com if you want to email, and 66 13 68 if you want to call. It's 8 minutes past 12. Wilf's with us first today. Hi, Wilf.
Hiya. I'm back on again. South Beach again, Andy.
And what's happened?
I've got a note here from DEFA via the town hall. It says, I'm just reading a bit of it here because there's not much of it. We understand that one of your commissioners has expressed on Mannin Line earlier this week his intention perhaps clearing vegetation, seaweed and stones from the top of the beach in front of the lifeboat station, Ramsey using an excavator. He also mentions that birds nest on the area, and this results in the area being fenced off. Now, that's their words. Now, what it is, there's no birds nesting there now. It's too late for birds to come nesting now. That's early spring they nest. Now, the birds only nest there when rubbish is allowed to build up in the corner. And birds have never been known to nest there till the commissioners and DEFA decided to turn it into a tip. Now, I've got a lot of complaints because I go down every day and have a look, and no other commissioners go down. There's a lot of people that have complained to me about the state of South Beach. My advice is to phone the town hall on 810-100 or fax 810-101 or complain to DEFA on 685-885. It seems like I'm the only commissioner out of 12 that's concerned about the beach and the kids breaking up from school and going, it's a tip. And nobody seems to want to do anything about it.
And so you've had a look then, no birds there at all at the moment?
No, there's no birds there. The birds only go there if it's left to build up. And the birds nest there in March, April. And that's gone. All that's nesting there now is people, or trying to, in amongst the rubbish. And there was a lot of people down there yesterday. And I sit there in my car and I'm watching it, and they're complaining to me, why can't you do something about this beach? And we've got no raft. They're complaining about that as well. Again, get on to the town hall about that.
And where did the last one come from, the last raft? Where was it from?
I paid for it. I got the timber, and I half paid for it. Save the Bay people paid for the other half. And the commissioners asked, they asked to see my plans. And I said, well, if you can look inside my head, you'll get the plans. Will you throw in with us? I said, what do you mean? Well, we'll build it. You've got the timber and everything. You've got the plans. I said, I don't need a plan. I don't need a plan to build a raft. I know what I'm doing. Anyway, I told them what to do, how to do it. The timber was all measured and cut and everything, and they did it wrong. They didn't put it together the way I told them to put it together in the first place. It's made it smaller than it was going to be. And the thing was, then they ran out of timber, and they asked about, we're going to source timber across. And I said, It's large. Yes. I said, well, that goes hard in salt water. That's why I'm using that. Right. The policy board has got no more. I said, what do you think decking is made of? And there's plenty of that. There's any amount about. So that one ended up, they finished doing it with decking. And they got that cheap then. So they spent a bit on it well. Now they're talking about £3,000 to fix it. If I was fit enough, I would fix it. But they don't really want it. They don't want it back on the beach.
Do you genuinely believe that? They don't want the raft back?
Genuinely believe it? Yes, definitely.
Why wouldn't they want the raft back?
Because they've had trouble with it because they made it wrong in the first place. Then they've had trouble with it because it broke loose 2 or 3 times. The last time it broke loose, it smashed. And they put it down too early in the season when the gales were still going. Now we've had weeks and weeks of flat, calm weather. The beach is full of kids. There's going to be more kids on it now, shortly, because they're going to break up from school and they've got no raft. And they've also got a tip to sit in. I'm disgusted with them. It seems to me I'm the only one out of 12 commissioners that's concerned about the beach.
You mentioned it last week, but just reiterate, Wilf, how long would it take to clear it with a digger?
10 minutes. You don't even want scraping back and let the tide take it away.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for that.
Okay.
Good to hear from you. Let's just see what happens with South Beach and the build-up of vegetation and what have you. And if you've got someone or maybe you're popping down to the beach today in Ramsey, just tell us a photo or two of the conglomeration. That'd be nice. Let's see what we're dealing with. I was at the pier last week for the flyby over Ramsey. It was absolutely gorgeous at Ramsey. That part of the beach gets very, very hot in the sunshine, so it's going to be a real steamer there today. Hope all the visitors enjoy it. Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Yeah, Wilf makes a lot of sense every time he's on. He obviously cares a lot about it, and the swimming raft, it's important when you've got a lot of kids around.
Well, you would think, because that's free fun, isn't it?
Well, that's right. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, but not necessarily the free version. Isle of Man swimming pools. I noticed that Peel Swimming Pool will be open 6 out of 7 days this TT race week, which is, from memory, our busiest week of the year. They're going to open for a total of 32 hours this week. Ramsey are open every day, and they'll be doing 50 hours worth of swimming. And the National Sports Centre in Douglas will be open every day for a grand total of 81.5 hours of operational usage of swimming.
And then we come to
Southern Swimming Pool, 0 hours, closed all week. And I'm trying to think of a rational reason why a publicly funded community swimming pool with its ongoing 24/7 heating and other overheads would choose to close its doors to paying customers in the busiest week of the year, especially considering the added financial burden they've got of permanent Sunday closure for the last 360 days, and Wednesday's partial closure, which, if you think about it, is 8 hours removed of what could be customer payments and also the Buchan School swim tuition contracts. And even if you go from a green perspective, potentially forcing the local 26,000-person catchment area and the TT visitors to have to travel to Douglas or Peel for a swim, and all the time it's burning gas to heat the pool, it just seems a complete waste of taxpayers' time and money.
Have they not said anything about why it's closed?
I think they're trying to make the case that it's from a financial perspective. But if the things, even with a swimming pool cover on, it's still going to be eating up gas. And you've got other sides of this. The fact that it's a very, very valuable health resource. If you remember some time ago, I was saying when they did analysis of people who swim regularly, 2 hours or more a week, 56% lower all-cause mortality, 50% reduction in asthma, 50% reduction in mental health issues.
Well, I know they do the, Aqua Blitz and the Aqua Fit classes, the aerobics that they have there. But also, I mean, this is half term for schools, and presumably they're not doing the party booking or the room hire that they do there as well there. So, I mean, that would be a source of, I mean, is it that they're not, are people taking holidays? Is that what it is?
Who knows? I mean, I know the weather's nice, but when the decision was made to close it, nobody knew what the weather was going to be. I mean, they've been saying it was going to be raining in the next day or two, and the weather forecast is changing every day at the moment. So, nobody knows what the weather's going to do. But I do remember, I think it was June the 10th last year, which is 360 days ago, we had 6 members of Tynwald. Tim Glover, Michelle Hayward, Jason Morehouse, Ewan Watterson, Diane Kelsey and Rob Mercer. And that headline on the Manx Radio news site, Southern members stand united to support community pool. Which is great, but we're 360 days down the line and it's still closing on a Sunday, still 3/4 of Wednesday are closed. And I do notice there is a certain MHK's name that's omitted from that list, Julie Edge. And she seems very quiet these days, especially after the QE2 school drag artist debacle. I just wondered, do you think maybe you should invite her on the programme and sort of have a catch-up? Because I haven't heard anything about her for a little while now.
Well, we've heard nothing about this famous swimming pool report that was presented, but nothing's been talked about.
Yeah, and I've spoken to several people, and they're getting fed up driving to Peel and Douglas. Instead of a few miles up the road, you've got to drive, the thick end of half an hour to get to Peel or Douglas. I mean, the waste of petrol, the pollution, if you must. It's where's the Green Party on this as well? I mean, waste of gas heating a pool that's empty for the week.
Is the Southern Swimming Pool, are they still, the committee, are they still in charge of the pool?
As far as I know, there's talk about the government taking over all the pools, isn't there? However, NSC, which is the only one that has been completely run by government, has not done a full year's, with the problem with the flumes, etc., and the movable bottom on it. It just makes you wonder, especially at this time of year. They talk about the fact that there's staff shortages, which kind of mirrors the air traffic control thing. You think that, our transport link and also one of our biggest health assets would actually get a bit more priority. And even from the ESG, environmental and social corporate governance perspective, environmental, you're heating a pool for a week with nobody paying anything through the door. Social, you've got all the people that go there for a social as well. I mean, even from their own ESG perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to close that pool.
But surely, and again, I'm just thinking out loud here, as you say, they didn't know what the weather was going to be like, but it's half term. It's half term, and that was always a hot time for young people, for kids, school students, to go and have a splash about in the pool. It was always, as always was.
Absolutely. And, not everybody wants to be out in the sun all the time, and, of course, the cafe's closed, which doesn't make any sense. We've got vending machines where that Knight Kavanagh and Page report said that Peel did the best because they made a 50,000 profit on their cafe. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to shut a cafe in that context and then put vending machines in.
Do you recall, I think the subject of putting solar panels or EVs on top of the pool was brought up. Did anything ever come of that?
Well, the one that would make sense would be the solar thermal tubes, because you're just imbuing heat straight into the pool. But, and the thing is, of course, they're portable. If they ever do decide to move to a new pool, they can just take the racks off the roof and put it straight on the next one. So it's nothing lost with that, just a bit of time.
I just wonder whether that roof, whether the structure would take the weight of them at the moment.
Well, you see, they could kill two birds with one stone with that. Any maintenance requirements, well, you've got to put the scaffolding up anyway, so you could sort the roof out and put the panels on and then do some sort of heat exchange system into their existing heating system. So, I don't know. it's questions that never seem to get answered, but it just seems a shame that, all the other pools have found a business reason to open right throughout this week, and they don't.
Interesting. And as you say, there's on the one side there's business, on the other side there's social, but also there's green credentials. And it seems that the conclusion they've come to is close it. It's the least trouble as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, but you can't let that pool sink too low in temperature, because it becomes even worse from an economic point of view to burn the amount of gas required to lift however many hundreds of thousands of litres of water there are. OK. All right, Julian, we appreciate that, and we're keeping our eye on the appearance of this report as soon as it does come, and whatever's going to happen to all the pools on the Isle of Man. OK. Thanks, Julian.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Good to hear from you. It's 22 minutes past 12 on Manx Radio. Actually, next week we're live. Next Tuesday, a week tomorrow, we're going to be live at Castle Russian High School in Castletown, right adjacent to the pool. So perhaps we'll ask and see if the students there have got any opinions on the pool. I do remember some of them in the past. We've chatted to some who got jobs as lifeguards in there. Could you correct this common misconception about geothermal energy, says Graham. True geothermal energy, as at Eden Park in Cornwall, exploits the Earth's natural temperature increase with depth and can supply conventional power plants. Shallow heat exchangers can only supply individual properties and not very efficiently at that. We were talking last week about putting heat pumps into people's gardens and how people have got some already and what's going to happen. Graham says, I advocate geothermal energy for the Isle of Man because it's clean and green. It doesn't produce CO2. It's unobtrusive. It's scalable. It's available 24/7, 365 with a lifetime in the decades, if not in the hundreds of years, and it is totally under our control. I gather now that the MU's got a debt of nearly £500,000, so almost certainly won't be looking at investing in geothermal. So we'll see what happens in the future with geothermal on the Isle of Man. That's Graham, our friend Graham Fox-Hume, who's been constantly in touch and was on Mannin Line last year with Fred Gray, talking about their experiences and what we could do on the Isle of Man. As yet, the government seems to be looking the other way. They've had advice, presumably, that geothermal won't work on the Isle of Man. Well, we won't know that it will work until we try it, would we? And at the moment, there seems no likelihood of us putting a test bore down just to see whether or not it actually could work for the Isle of Man. I got a lovely letter in from George Anders. George wrote to me from Wallasey on the Wirral, and he said, as TT is on now, I was reading in my local newspaper, the Wirral Globe, and found an article that may have interest to yourself and the wider public on the Isle of Man. George said, my love of the Isle of Man began in 1964 when I came over with the Birkenhead Boys Club and stayed for a week at a school in Douglas. We had a great time buying kippers from Peel for my dad and touring the Isle of Man. We met a man on Douglas Promenade who was selling small pocket radios for £2, all tuned to Radio Caroline, because of course started in 1964. It's the 60th anniversary next year of the start of Caroline. I asked him would I be able to get Radio Caroline from Liverpool, and of course the answer was yes. Unfortunately, I didn't buy one, so I'll never know. We also purchased a carton of ice-cold milk from the milk machine in Douglas. I went on the horse trams, I went up Snaefell, watched A Hard Day's Night at the cinema at the end of Douglas Promenade. The article in the Wirral Globe is about scooter days, mods and rockers and mockers. I always had a motorcycle later on, just a small one, but read with interest the article and didn't realise that women were so adept at the time at entering competitions on the island at the TT. This lady was a pioneer of her time, and I hope this is of interest. My dad passed away, so we didn't need the kippers anymore, but every time we've been over, we've enjoyed a big welcome. All the best to you from George, and he sends a big picture over from from Danny Doyle's collection of Elizabeth Smolan and her mother outside the shop. That's Elizabeth Smolan, who was the world champion motor scooter rider. Elizabeth Smolan, that is. Great to get letters like that. Thank you, George. Good to hear from you. I want to also mention that next week, Sarah Maltby is on. Sarah Maltby and Victoria McLaughlin, the Social Security Director, will be on. We're going to be talking all about benefits. And if you've got any questions about benefits, if there's something you want clearing up, then by all means do, because obviously there are lots and lots of unclaimed benefits. There are some benefits that aren't available, but some are. But do get in touch if you can. And here's a message in from Della. Hello, Della. And she said, there was a man on talking last week about it's going to be 3 years before the Isle of Man airport has enough air traffic controllers. How can this possibly be, as we're getting disruption to our flights all the time? Well, one in particular, it's the Lake Gatwick one, but Gary Cobb was on last week saying that was really down to availability of aeroplanes. But anyway, we're told that trainees are working their way towards endorsements so we can get enough air traffic controllers at Ronaldsway. It's going to be a while yet before they are in the tower.
Due to Civil Aviation Authority rules, those in air traffic control can only be in the tower for 90 minutes at a time. Retiring staff means the workforce isn't always able to overlap fatigue breaks, and subsequently flights are delayed. However, Airport Director Gary Cobb says he is aware of the disruption and is making changes.
We're changing the roster to be able to facilitate more of the opening hours, moving it a little bit at the start of the day helps. So ATCOs that start in the morning have to take their mandated fatigue breaks every 90 minutes. If they start later on in the morning, then that can stretch to 2 hours. If an air traffic controller goes over by a minute from their scheduled time, they'll get called into the CAA. Their licence is potentially put into jeopardy, and then I'll probably get called into the CAA as well. There is a reason why air travel is the safest mode of travel, and that is all of the rules and regulations that we follow. These rules happen everywhere. I think one of the things that comes up with, I hear occasionally on social media, tea breaks. I think that's probably people mishearing fatigue breaks, and again, they're mandatory. The rules are laid down. We have just moved to some European Aviation Safety Agency rules, but again, in old CAP 670, for those that want to have a look at the rules, they're pretty well laid down.
That's the story from Gary Cobb at the moment, but it is 3 years. They're saying 3 years, and the sad fact is, once people are trained up, they are fully within their rights to leave and go elsewhere, so we can be left without them. So what do we do, and how do we guard against this for the future? How do we maintain the connections to the Isle of Man? It's absolutely vital that we do remain close to everybody. Terry said, I've got a solution for litter and dog waste, the dog waste crisis on the Isle of Man. I think litter offenders should be fined £1,000. We give £250 to beach buddies out of that £1,000, £250 to the person supplying the evidence, and £500 used to improve the litter infrastructure. So there are people who care. Terry says, I think Amanda at Douglas Corporation Council seems to care about this, but we still have the problem with people who are littering, people who think that it really doesn't matter, that they get fast food cartons and just lob them out of their car when they've finished scoffing whatever they bought. It happens here on Douglas Head. We see it all the time. I don't know where you are, if you find it, if you live somewhere that's got a particularly nice view, people come along, eat in the car and just put the rubbish into the gutter and then drive off. £1,000, says Terry. People would soon stop. If you make fines absolutely of the ilk that will just put everybody off, then it will stop people doing it. Once half a dozen or 10, 12, 15, 20 people have been fined £1,000 for littering, do you think they'd do it again? Regarding the coarse hedges, I can't get over the coarse hedge not being cut. The TT coarse hedge looks terrible. Why hasn't the TT course hedge been cut, says this correspondent. And a message in just regard talking about the upkeep of tourist spots. The Ferry Bridge hasn't been cleaned up for years. This tourist season, it looks a disgrace. It's still covered in graffiti. It's one of our most photographed tourist spots. It's a disgrace, says Ian. Well, opinion always is split, about the Ferry Bridge, whether lots of people think that all those notes and flowers should stay there all the time. Other people say, given a couple of months and it looks an absolute mess. What do you think about it? Right, it's 29 minutes before, and lots of messages to get through this lunchtime on Mannin Line. And a quick message, and I want to come to, and it was Bridget who dropped me a note and said, when Teresa Cope was last in, you asked her about the private patients unit on the Isle of Man at Nobles Hospital. And she said that a decision was in the offing. So could you find out whether or not they've made any decisions about what's going to happen to the private patients unit on the Isle of Man? Bridget says, my husband and I have got jobs that give us private health cover. Lots of other people on the Isle of Man have jobs that have private health cover. And I think that Manx Care, or Department of Health and Social Care, is basically legislating against the people and the companies that are paying for private health care. We always had a private patients wing at Nobles Hospital, so why are they seemingly against it? Well, no firm decision has been made about the future of the private patients unit at Nobles Hospital. Nothing's been announced. The Health and Social Care Minister, Laurie Hooper, MHK, has confirmed it's unlikely that it will see people privately until 2024. Now, Laurie Hooper was quizzed on the future of the unit recently by Jason Morehouse, MHK, and David Ashford, MHK.
The delivery of NHS services is our priority, and it is considered at this time that if the PPU can be utilised to aid in significantly reducing NHS waiting lists, this is the best use it can be put to at present. For people who have private healthcare provisions, Manx Care currently provide diagnostic outpatient services provided by radiology, endoscopy, dermatology and audiology. As the year progresses, Manx Care are looking to slowly expand the private healthcare services to include procedures from both Nobles and Ramsey Cottage Hospital.
In terms of going forward, does he actually see a private operator coming into this space? When can we expect an update on this?
As far as I'm aware, there's nothing that would prevent a private operator setting up on the Isle of Man should they choose to do so. Nobles Hospital clearly is a public asset, so it is Manx Care operated whether the member likes that or not. In terms of whether or not there are plans or any firm plans as to how the PPU should be operated in the future, as of this moment in time, I'm not aware of anything that has been set down in stone. So as far as I know, a range of options are being considered, but with Manx Care providing the services directly feeling the most likely at present.
Is the department still committed longer term to the island having a private patient offering?
I think I've literally just answered that exact question from Mr. Morehouse. There are a range of options as to how the PPU could be run going forwards. I think at the moment the preferred route is the one I've already outlined, but on the broader question that the honourable member asks, yes, the department is committed to having private patient services on the Isle of Man.
What do you think about this? If you've got private health cover, or you know somebody who has, at the moment, and in recent times, if there was an operation needed, they were ferried over to hospitals in the UK, and at some point the insurance companies will look and see whether it's worth it. So what's going to happen? The big provider in the UK, I think, is that the Isle of Man uses is Spire Healthcare. There's a big hospital on the Wirral that they use. Aviva do hospital. Bupa certainly do hospitals. At the moment, we don't. So whether or not those private patient referrals are being sent off the Isle of Man or dealt with here, Mr. Hooper said there was some outpatient stuff that was happening. That was always between the lines one of the reasons that we had a lot of the consultants, in that the consultants would do their NHS work and would obviously then get paid separately for doing private consultancies by the insurance companies, and they made up a significant part of their income by doing private work. We have lost a lot of consultants over the past few years. Maybe that's coincidental that we haven't had a private patients unit. But we'll see what happens in the future. It's certainly something that whether we like it or not, high-paid executives who come and transfer to the Isle of Man often want a private patients unit. And we haven't had one. We do have one, but it's just inoperative at the moment. As Mr. Hooper said, it's being used to reduce our NHS waiting list. So presumably the people who are getting cataracts and hips and knees done are recuperating in what was the private patients unit. We'll see what happens in the future, but it's just one of those things. It's another little bit of the Isle of Man that seems to have dropped off with no plan for it in the future. My wife and I, says Malcolm, have been regular cruisers, and at the end of each port call that you make, you're asked to rate the port that you've just visited. This determines any future cruise itineraries. I just wonder what rating our recent visitors, including the Saga cruisers, will give the Isle of Man. We've had Hurtigruten, we've had Saga, and I just wonder what they never make it public. I wonder if we ask them what did the cruise visitors think of the Isle of Man. I wonder whether Hurtigruten and Saga would tell us.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
The 3 for £12 barbecue range exclusively at ShopRite. Choose from Andreas Meat Company Manx pork sausages, premium Manx burgers, tasty minute steaks, juicy pork loin steaks, or delicious glazed chicken thighs and drumsticks. Mix and match any 3 for £12. We also stock charcoal and picnic ware, so you can create the perfect barbecue feast all in one place. Add that to a great selection of salads, sides and snacks. It has to be ShopRite, where the riders shop.
46% of all road collisions on the island last year happened during the TT. 67% of people seriously injured in motorcycle collisions were visitors here. Always obey posted speed limits. Ride within your abilities at all times. And remember, driving under the influence of drink or drugs will not be tolerated. This TT, know your limits. Brought to you by the Isle of Man Road Safety Team.
When you need a fitting memorial or headstone for a loved one, contact Manx Memorials in Peel. This long-standing family-run Manx company offer a wide range of granite and marble headstones and memorials, along with an island-wide inscription and renovation service. Manx Memorial's skilled professionals will take the time to help you choose a suitable memorial, and we're proud to say we'll beat other local quotes. Call 843 861 or email matthew@manxmemorials.co.uk.
Are you concerned about your eye health? Holmes & Davidson Opticians in Douglas are proud to offer the Eidon Ultra-Wide Field Retinal Imaging and Heidelberg 4D OCT systems, state-of-the-art machines that allow early detection and management of eye diseases. Don't wait. Book your appointment today and ensure the health of your eyes with the best technology available. Call 676 230 or visit holmesanddavidsonopticians.co.uk now.
Looking for some adrenaline-fueled excitement? The motorbike's just not thrilling enough for you. Well, Agenda might just be what you're looking for as we consider 2 bills which are currently making their way through Keys and Ledgecote. The Sanctions Bill aims to provide a modern and flexible framework to allow Manx authorities to implement UK sanctions, and the Income Tax Bill clarifies a possible technical flaw in Manx tax law. That's all on Agenda this evening at 6 p.m. on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. Yes, 2 fascinating bills on this week's show. 3, if you include Bill Henderson.
Mannin Line! 20 to 1 now, and we got... Julian's back. Hi, Julian.
Yeah, just a quick one. I heard after Graham mentioning about geothermal. Might be interesting from a longevity point of view, because it's always good to know how reliable something is. Larderello in Tuscany in Italy, next year they will celebrate the 120th anniversary since the installation of the Larderello 1 geothermal energy plant. And since 1904, they've expanded to 34 power plants which generate 800 megawatts 24/7, which is 10 times Paul Rose Power Station in one Tuscan city.
You see, somewhere in government, somebody will be sitting saying, you know, if we pay for, I don't know, £1 million or however much it's going to cost for a geothermal test bore, and it goes wrong and nothing happens, they'll say, you know, people are going to point at us and say, why did you waste government money?
Well, that's an interesting wasting government money. Okay, I think it's probably worth a goer considering the technology has moved on so much with drilling now that they reckon that 3/4 of the planet could actually have geothermal, regardless of their geology, simply for the fact that they can use those plasma cutters and go so deep. But the fact that we're on an igneous intrusion or an uplift in the granite, very similar to Cornwall, and they're producing power like Billio. So I think it's probably worth a punt on that one if we get what you might call free energy. I might point you actually to another side to this about, we were saying about why they're not interested in geothermal. If you look for Finland nuclear power station closed because the electricity price was too cheap. Which is a funny title. It's easy to find, but they've ratcheted down the nuclear power station because the amount of electricity they could charge to the customer went below zero because it was economically so cheap.
My word, it's like being in a hall of mirrors, isn't it?
I know, but it does point you to the direction of. Well, I suppose you can understand that they don't actually want to pay for their own production, but it just goes to show that there are some, shall we say, some negative things talked about with nuclear, for example, whereas in actual fact, if you look at the statistics across the last 150 years, it's actually one of the safest ones, far safer than coal's ever been, or even gas. You've had Chernobyl, but the actual number of people in the context of worldwide deployment of it is tiny. And then you had Fukushima, which, you've got one of the largest tsunamis ever recorded, and they actually did lower the hill where they put that one on to make it easier to get cooling water for the reactor. So if they hadn't actually spent the $1 billion lowering the hill, they wouldn't have had that problem in the first place, but who knew? Okay. All right, Julian, good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Thanks, Andy. Cheers. Take care. And Jed's with us now. Hi, Jed.
Hi, Andy. Just following up on some of the feedback, that you mentioned regarding cruise ship passengers. That would be fascinating to find out, their thoughts about when they visited this, what was it, an igneous intrusion? Yes,
that's right. We're now the igneous intrusion. Well, obviously, presumably the cruise operators will keep that to themselves, but it would be nice to know, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, they've pulled an absolute masterstroke. I love the Beach Buddies activity where we've got cruise shippers visiting here to, tidy up the island's beaches. And I'm wondering whether we could just take that one step further. Why not, say, issue a personalised jet wash, like in the style of a Ghostbusters outfit, and they could maybe do the Douglas streets and clean, all those nasty stains down? Or
I have to say, they're doing it. I think, is it with the Hertie Grooten? They get people with a sort of eco willingness, and they clean they come over, they spend money, and they clean our beaches for them. That's fantastic.
Well, let's take it up to the next level. Why don't we just offer a personalised kind of paint and whitewash experience, like clean up the Fort North roundabout, or maybe like an ancient scaffolding dismantling day out, where it's like, revisit your childhood days of Meccano.
Or we could give them a lawn edger and they can go around all the promenade gardens and straighten all the lawn and do some planting.
Or what about this, like a platinum ticket, which would be to have your own demolition ball and knock down the Castletown golf links? I think the sales would just go through the roof, wouldn't they? Crikey.
Is that still there?
Unfortunately, but and I think it'll be there another few years yet. But maybe if our government can get their heads together, they can do something about it. But any decision that they'd make now, it'd be 3 years until we saw anything.
But what's the state of play, Jed? What is the state of play regarding the golf links?
I think it's just a Mexican standoff at the moment. But for me, who's involved in tourism, you take your visitors down there and you just get a bit tired trying to cover the cracks, for this inadequacy that we've got, for a government at the moment, because it's a national embarrassment.
Obviously, you deal with hundreds of golfers per year, come in, visit the Isle of Man. The Golf Links, is the only links course on the Isle of Man. It's a fantastic course. And how on earth, what do you say to people?
You just tell them how sad you are, really. You can't really kid them that it's just around the corner, because this has dragged on for a decade now. And I think it can be solved at government level. It could be solved at a pencil stroke, because they can't shrug their shoulders and say it's the responsibility of Maloo commissioners. Because to engage in a court action, they've got to put 20 grand down, haven't they, really, if they're going to take on the developers, whoever. So it should be done at government level. It should be statutory, and it could be applied to a lot of sites around the island. We know where they are. We don't have to go over old ground. But this could be cured by 24 willing people.
OK. All right, Jed, I appreciate that. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
OK, it's 14 minutes to 1. What do you think about this? Very well done, actually. Whoever thought that up, where we could get cruise visitors coming over here and cleaning up our beaches for us and feeling good about it. That's brilliant. Well, it is Bill Dale, and he's a very good ideas man. David's with us now. Hi, David.
So on a similar vein, why don't we get the ship's passengers to come to the island and just give us what we should be doing, or we make them all independent planning inspectors, and we get some of this planning that we've stuck at the minute, like Jed was saying about the golf links down there. It needs to be moved on. If it's a Mexican standoff, surely if somebody wants to develop it and it's within keeping and reasonable, we should be able to do it. And I hate to say about the one on Newsom's Quay, why do we have to wait to September for that decision to be made? I just can't understand. David Ashford's coming on, isn't it? Is to find out, and I listened to the news this morning, and there was an article on about down south somewhere, a big development, a college and whatever, and it was to do with HM de Sol, but I can't find it anywhere to say, is it legit? Is it something that the Chamber have just dreamt about?
No, well, apparently this is the big university. It's going to be a university, 6,000 students, courses validated from all over the world. It's going to be terribly eco-friendly and green, and with a data centre and what have you. And as soon as we can get them to come on Mannin Line, then we'd love to get them on just to see what the big idea is, because where the money's coming from and what part government's going to play in it.
Well, that's the whole scenario. Is it going to happen? It's the same thing happened at the Castle Moan. I went past there the other day and I had thought to myself, what is going on behind there? Is it getting anywhere? Is anybody giving them any help? Or
I've heard all sorts of rumours that it is going forward and it is going to be a luxury hotel, but it's a long way off.
It looks a long way off, and I would think a lot of money that goes into it. But it's like you say, we've got lots of things to do in the island. Look at this weather we're having. Can you imagine if we had PV panels on every school? At the moment, we'd be getting free electricity. If we had evacuating tubes, which I think the fellow was on about earlier, for the swimming pools, we could free. Do you want to see mine out here? I'm making free hot water. I'm thinking of selling it.
You could be setting up a tea stall with it.
Well, yes. The only trouble is the Isle of Man Energy, what they're called now, the Water Authority, will probably want to put a meter on and charge me even more than I'm getting now.
Are you involved with Old Boys Campsite at the moment?
We're not involved with it, but I'm aware of it because we're slightly connected with it. But,
okay, what numbers have they got on there at the moment?
How many tents are there?
Yeah.
I'll say there must be, and it's great for them. It's like a whole complete tented village down there. There's about 120 tents down the bottom, and then we've probably got about 100 and something on the fields that we get involved with. And I'll tell you a real nice story. A load of French people, this is gospel, a load of French people came off the boat, about 14 of them, went to an Old Boys site and talked to a fella down there, and he said, can you fit us in? And he said, well, we're really a little bit chocker. And he found a square piece of land for them to sit on. And they've got a little French village. And I seen Met them the other night there, and a great bunch of lads. Talk about the hairy bikers, like, they're loving it in the Isle of Man, and that's what we want with people. We want to push that story out. You come to the Isle of Man, we take care of you, don't we?
You bet. Okay, thanks for that, David.
See you, boy.
Sure, it's 9 minutes before 1 on Manx Radio. It's a gorgeous Monday afternoon, 4-day week. Remember, there is a bank holiday this Friday, although senior race day is Saturday. And Frankie on 762 said, I noticed after last week's comments how dirty and unkempt Douglas was. The Corporation Council have got 2 cleaning machines cleaning outside the Sefton Hotel this morning, but nowhere else. Regent Street looks like an upturned ashtray, and disgusting sight for ratepayers and for holidaymakers. And Ramsey didn't look much better at the moment. Here's a message in on the subject of litter. We took our 1-year-old grandson to Silverdale on Friday. It was filthy. The bins were overflowing. There were dirty nappies there as well on the ground next to the bins with other rubbish. It was disgusting. I'm not taking my grandson there again. Also, the baby swing in the small children's area is really not enough. I don't know who owns Silverdale, but it absolutely needs a good clean-up. You would think that at this time of the year that will be something of a priority. Andy said, have you been watching the Paul Moulton videos? Do you think Paul Moulton will get answers to his FOI requests, or is the government intent on prevarication and hiding information? Paul Moulton seems to be, Paul Moulton's, can we call them opinion pieces, which continually are getting posted up. Paul Moulton seems to be on the internet, seems to be getting very excited about his freedom of information requests, and I don't know whether Paul Moulton's working with anybody or who's writing his scripts, but it'd be nice to find out exactly what the answers to those FRI requests will be. So we'll watch him, and thank you, Paul, for giving us the entertainment. On the subject of litter, I remember the litter campaign at school vividly as a child. I now walk my young child to school every day through the back lanes near Ballacameen. The litter is atrocious. My 5-year-old would never dream of dropping litter, yet he sees the big kids doing it with no care, no respect. It's a shocking amount of litter and very sad to see. It needs to start with parents and the school. They need to educate children. Bring back the litter campaign. Thank you, 429. How do you do it, though, 429? What do you say to people who are intent on dropping litter? When you see these people who drop litter, have you ever caught their eye? When they've thrown something down and they look up sheepishly, have you ever caught their eye? Have you ever said anything to them and just said, would you pick that up, please? Or shall I pick that up for you? They always scuttle away and don't say anything anymore. So what do you do? If people are intent on littering, now somebody said earlier on, £1,000 fine. A few of those and they wouldn't do it anymore. Or maybe they would. Maybe out of spite, they go out after dark and do it as well. So I don't know what we do. It's always a tiny minority of people who litter on the Isle of Man. So if there's something we can do about it, then perhaps we should. But who's going to do it? Police? The officers deputised by Douglas Council to do it? Have you ever seen anybody stopped for littering on the street? Ever seen anybody fined for littering? Do you know anybody who's ever been fined for littering our streets? We all have to suffer it. One person drops the litter, 2, 3, 4, 500 people see the piece of litter. It takes something out of their day. It dispirits you, doesn't it, when you see somebody dropping litter? So what do we do about it? Text, email, call and WhatsApp if you have an idea, then we'd absolutely love to hear it. And I just want to mention before I go today, it's regarding not the air traffic control, it's regarding Pulrose Power Station. And Laura dropped me a note in and said, I've spoken to a few friends and family in Pulrose who've moved to Pulrose, and since moving, they've become ill. And they said they've never been ill until they moved to Pulrose. Could this be due to the exposure to the power station? Have pollution level tests in Pulrose ever been done? Has anybody ever tested the air around Pulrose? There seems to be a lot of residents around Pulrose with lung disease, with cancer and other illnesses. Laura's words, by the way. And other illnesses that could be caused from exposure to the power station. It's a theory that many residents think is a possibility. Thank you, Laura, for that information. Well, next time we speak to Douglas South MHKs, we'll bring it up. Actually, we've got the Douglas South MHK on Mannin Line next week. Sarah Maltby is on with Victoria McLaughlin, the Director of Social Security, will be on. Next Tuesday, live from Castle Rushen High School. Well, make the most of the rest of your Monday. It's a gorgeous day. If you're out and about, on the bike, seeing bikes, having fun, then please do take care. And that's it. Thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today. Mannin Line returns at high noon tomorrow.
WINT